Hello, everyone. This is the Avocado 54th release meeting. We'll go through the items that will make release 54 and also give a quick glimpse, a quick look of items we have been working on and which we plan to work towards release 55. So today it's a meeting which is actually out of the ordinary. We usually hold those meetings on Mondays. Um, Due to some other conflicting agenda items, we moved it to Tuesday. So we are at least short of one man. Lukash wasn't able to be here, but this is going to be recorded for others who also were not able to join. So without further ado, let me share the Trello board, which we usually use to go through the major tasks um, which we worked on. So from bottom to top, as usual, um, one of the last changes we pushed was based on a report from a user who was not really running tests on Windows, but who was accessing the test results produced by Avocado on Windows file systems. And there were clashes, basically with the colon character, which Windows lists as unsupported. So Amador gave a first quick look, noticed that those few characters are reserved in Windows file systems. After some discussions, we decided to slightly adjust the test ID format to play better with Windows file systems. And this was the result of this change. So basically, if you're used to run Avocado tests with variants, the separator used to be a semicolon, and now it's a plus sign. There was of course discussions on the best possible character to be used. It's pretty hard to come up with a solution that pleases everyone. But in the end, we settled with plus. And let's think that this is pasttest.py with the parameters or the conditions that this given variant brings into the mix. It's probably one way to look at the test ID after this change. Next one, we had a report from a user who was using a quite interesting format of YAML file to feed into the varianter. Basically, he had an extended set of key and values after the base key, which caused during serialization, these were turned into three nodes, which were having problems to be serialized. Lukash sent a pull request suggesting to turn them into ordered dicts for serialization, and Amador is going to give more in-depth looks of the changes and what this may mean to users.
Yeah, sure. I'm sharing my screen basically with the same YAML file that was provided by the user during the report of the issue. You can notice that a user is creating here a list of elements as the value for these key called validators. And by creating this list of elements, each item of the list has a set of key values in it. And the problem that we were facing with Avocado is how we create an object that is used inside Avocado out of this structure or structures like this. The way we were working before was that we were creating a list, nothing different here. But when we hit this part of the structure here from the expected key on, we were not able to create an object out of this like an ordinary object. So we were creating a 3-node element. And the problem with that are basically two. First one is how to access these values using the Avocado parameters API. And the second one is how to serialize the object that we create out of this YAML file. So if you look to the other half of the screen, to access this expected key here, I would have to acquire the self.params.get validators, which is the main key here. Then I would have to get the element index 0, which is the first element of this list, which is the whole section here. And from this whole section, I would have to get the index 3, which is 0, 1, 2, 3 expected. And by doing this, I'll be able to see whatever is inside of this structure here. Of course, this is not a nice way to access the parameter, but that's not the main issue with this. The main issue is that we are unable to serialize the object created out of this. So if we run this test with that YAML file, what you will see is, first of all, this message saying that the object is, Avocado is unable to serialize the object. And the second point is how to access that parameters. And as you can see here, we are printing the validator 03. So if you take a look at the log file, job log, you see that when we print out the expected, it's actually a string with the expected key and all the key values that are inside. I mean, it's a mess. So the fix consists in create a proper structure out of this YAML file. And I will demonstrate you how it's being done with the fix applied on top of master. So the same test with the same YAML file. Okay, now I have to change the way to access the parameters. I'm not using validators 03 anymore. Still, we are creating a list because there's a list being created here. We are getting the first element of this list, which is index 0. But from that point on, we have to access it as a dictionary, actually an ordered dictionary. We are going to access the expected key and then the key called value. So it's a more sane way to access the parameters. And also, of course, we are able to serialize it. If we run it again with these changes and see what's in the job log, now we have printed the value of the key called value, which is inside the key called expected, which is an element of the list of validators. So from user perspective, just a small change. I mean, it's a change of API, but for a small group of users, only those users that are creating such complex structures in YAML files that are provided to Avocado as source of parameters. Of course, the best way to create those structures is being explicit, is saying that you are going to create a Python dictionary and then you can create it as you wish. But if you don't do that, if you are not explicit, still we can parse the YAML files in a better way, in a way that we will be able to serialize so you don't see any error messages anymore. But be aware that you'll have to change slightly the way to access those parameters. And that's all. Hope it was clear enough.
Very clear. Thanks a lot for the explanation and demo. And most importantly, like the user visible changes that users should be aware of. I don't think we have that many users out there using those complex structures. So hopefully the user who reported will have already kept in sync with the issue and pull requests. If not, he can refer to this explanation. Um so this card is also a consequence of the bug of the issue that we described earlier, which shows the difference in how we are serializing and making the parameters available. So Alder already went through the explanation there. Next one, another user reported some problems with test level profilers not being cleaned up after the test finished. Uh, it took some extensive back and forth and experiments and proposal of solutions. In the end, we identified, Amador and Lukács identified the issue, and a pull request was suggested with a number of fixes, actually. So, out of a few options, we decided to include them all. So, the first one is that a shell is not going to be used anymore in the commands that are executed as profilers. This deserves a heads up because if you're using a command that is not really just a path to binary, but something that will only run inside a shell, uh, this can hit you. So a shell is not going to be used by default. If you need complex command, you can wrap it in a script yourself. The next one is being more forceful with the, not being more forceful, but asking the demons explicitly to be stopped, and finally killing the process tree, the whole process tree, uh, to really, really eliminate those demons, those profilers. So the issue is fixed. Avocado should not be leaving processes around, the profiler processes around anymore, and should be much more reliable. Next one is a major new feature. So a bit of context. So Avocado tests are inherited from unit tests, and the idea for that, uh, just to give a really, really quick explanation, is that the familiarity that people have with unit tests and the added APIs and tools that Avocado provides should, in most situations, bring up an ideal place. But we are aware that uh, at sometimes projects may already have plain unit tests, and they may need to be combined in the same Avocado job execution, or just like running Python unit tests with the extra features, result formats, and everything that Avocado provides may be a good idea. So back a while, we provided a script that was able to find Python unit tests by a static analysis of source code, and that could be used in cooperation with Avocado's external runner to effectively run Python unit tests. But it was not like a first-class citizen. It was a partial solution, and now we have introduced a proper, much better support for Python unit tests. So let me switch screens and show how this looks like to a regular user. So first of all, there's no difference in how users would look for tests or even run them. Avocado's own tests are actually unit test based. So if we just go ahead and list the tests on a given um, files, we are going to see that Avocado now has a new test type, which is PyUnit test, and it lists the name just as a Python unit test expects. So module name, class name, method name. And of course, the execution is just as straightforward. So if we do Avocado run self-test, unit test, 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 it's going to run all the 18 tests in this case there are in there. A heads up with regards to how this compatibility is done and the consequences. So Avocado has a different and documented model of running tests where each test is run on a separate process. So different from unit test, we do not share the class state among tests. So each one of these tests is actually a fresh new instance of this class and a fresh new execution of this method. This means that some features on unit tests, such as class setup, class level setup, and class level teardown, will not apply to more than one execution. In theory, you can still rely on those, but they will be done for each one of those tests. So no shared state among two executions of any test. The way this was implemented, at least for now, is that we actually fork a new Python process that calls the unit test module and checks on the condition of them. We have let me see if I can quickly find the functional test. Yes. We have a functional test that tests the various states. Of course, you're here seeing all the paths because this is the functional test that was performed, but we have Python file which actually gets executed here, and what we check is that the important status are respected. So a test that is supposed to pass in unit test returns the appropriate state in Avocado. A test that fails is also uh, respected, and a test that errors is also respected. So you can expect the unit tests exit status to match with the Avocado statuses. So I think that's about it on this feature. Let me go back to the Trello planning board. Yes, next item is a new addition to Avocado's utility library, which is the VM image library. Pretty handy stuff for those in need of image for various types of guest OSs, and Amador is going to give a quick demo on how to use it.
Yeah, sure. This VM image library is relying on the distributions repositories. So one problem that we have is, by running virtualization tests or tests for QEMU, tests for libvirt, or for anything that needs a virtual machine, the first problem that we have with those tests is how to get an image that is small enough and also which is pre-prepared for running tests with it. Right now we keep the GOS image for our Avocado VT and virtualization related stuff, but it's something that we create and we have our own repository to keep that image. And the idea behind this new library here is to have images that are already there in the distributions repositories, because most of the distributions nowadays, they have a cloud image, call to image that are pre-installed with that operating system, and they can be used for tests. So the goal behind this library is to provide users with an image from the official distributions repository through an API which is stable and easy to use. It's very straightforward. You have to import from Avocado, you use the VM image library, and you can have your image by running image equals to VM image.get. This would be the basic usage. And by running this command, what you get out of this is an image that is picked by the library, because you are not informing any options, any specific options for that image. So the library will pick up the best image that it can provide you, which is right now the Fedora version 26 and the architecture that matches the local system architecture. To have access to that image, you have the path for it, and the path for this image is the place that where the image is located on, but it's not the real image that was downloaded from the distribution repository. What you get is actually a snapshot image, a key call to empty image, which is backed by the actual image. The actual image can be accessed by image.base image attribute, and this is the real one. So this one, it's here just because it's important to be in the API, but what we expect users to do is to use this one as the image where you can write, you can mess with it, and you can drop it afterwards, because the base image will be always here. Of course, we are making cache of this base image, so next time someone tries to get an image out of this same base image, it will be the same base image but different path, because it's different snapshots. So you can see that the image.paths are different here, but the base image are always the same given these parameters that are provided. The good thing about this library is that you can be more specific about what image you want to get. For example, you can say that you want Ubuntu image, and then you have Ubuntu latest and an architecture that matches your local architecture. You can tell something different, like I don't care about the distribution, but I want it to be architecture Arch64. So you have plenty of options here. You can provide the distribution name, Fedora, Debian, Ubuntu. We have 4 or 5 image providers right now. You can tell the version that you want. You can tell the architecture that you want. In this case, you provided architecture ARM, and then we got that image from Fedora secondary image provider, version 26, image 4.path. This is the image that you get. And just to inspect this file that's been created here, let's have a look at it with QEMU img info and that path. You can see that it's almost no disk usage, because it's a brand new image which is using as backing file the base image that was exposed before. So that's it. It's a simple library, but very useful. You can have images from different distributions. Right now, we have different providers. You can list them here. We have Fedora, we have CentOS, we have Ubuntu, we have Fedora secondary, which provides the ARM image, and we have Debian image providers. It's very easy and straightforward to add your own image provider in this library. You can add some downstream repository of image that you have, but I'm not going to give you examples on that right now. You can mail in the mailing list, or we can discuss it offline. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. I think one of the striking easy of use aspects of this library is that if you're running a sequence of tests, like say 100 tests, and you need a fresh new environment, a new guest environment for each of those tests, it should be really, really, really fast, like getting a fresh new image for each test, both because of the snapshot and also because of the caching of the downloads. So yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, the caching, you can see that we are using the /tmp as like default directory for doing the cache, but of course you can, as part of the flexibility package that you get with this library, is also defining your own cache directory. If you want a different location, you can use it, just passing it as yet another option for the vmimage.get API.
Nice. Cool. Thanks a lot. So next one is kind of a smaller issue. We had a description. Actually, an issue was raised. Let me get back to the card. An issue was raised about how on some situations we cannot tell the exact location of the source that was used. So this pull request addresses it simply by listing some of the test metadata. At this point, only the file name. Maybe we can see the usefulness of adding to the start of the test more information about the test itself. So a bit of introspection that may be useful in understanding what test was executed and under which conditions. Next one is a fix of a bug. So if I remember correctly, Amador himself found the issue and found it and fixed it, sorry. And basically it was that the tests were not being properly skipped. I guess I'm messing it up. It's the opposite.
Oh yeah, the issue here is, well, we have skip decorators. You can decorate a method inside your test class to be skipped. I mean, you can mark that test to be skipped. But if you use the skip decorator in a test method, it will work, no problems with that. But if you use the same skip decorator decorating the setup method, then we have this issue, which is basically the fact that teardown will be executed in that case. And it should not be executed because skipped test means nothing will be executed. So the fix here consists in, when using skip decorators to decorate setup methods, teardown will not be executed and the test will not finish with error status, but with skip status.
Cool. Okay. The description makes a lot of sense. So if a test is really skipped, if a test is to be skipped, it should be completely skipped. And this was not being done. Okay, cool. I'm just wondering how you actually found it out, what you were playing with to find it. Okay, next one is variant known was being applied to replay jobs. Uh, Basically, I noticed that when doing a run and then later a replay, uh, a known variant in theory was being applied. The truth was actually that a representation of a non-existing variant ID was being passed on. So there were no variants, but this actually caused the detection of a variant should be the representation of a variant should be applied to the test ID. So this was fixed. So now this, if this is none, it's going to show up as none, and consequently in the test ID is going to show up as not having a variant instead of none, a variant by the name none. So quick bug fix. Uh, This issue was about using Avocado in virtual environments. Basically, Avocado has data tiers. There are used to be considered outside of the virtual environment, even when a virtual environment was being used. And now, if we are inside virtual environment, the Avocado base tier, which the data tiers actually rely upon, are going to be used inside, are going to be ones inside the virtual env itself. So a few examples. One example on how this may affect users. If you create a VM and you download Avocado and you download, say, Avocado VT, and you do the bootstrap and download the GOS file, it's gonna be under um, the VM, so the completely temporary place. And the same thing about results and everything. So the base data directory with a virtual env is going to be really disposable, will be virtual, which seems to make sense given the way a Python virtual env is usually used uh, for things that you want to discard afterwards. Next one is tackle all to-do fix me comments about changes after the LTS release. So we went through painting things that should be fixed or removed after the release of LTS. So Amador went through the items and they were already dealt dealt with. So we were good in that front. And at the same time, he went ahead and created a card to actually remove all the to deal with all the issues that have to be dealt with when 36 LTS is actually when it actually reaches end of life. So was some detective work here, and it looks like we were already good on that front. Finally, there was some activity on Avocado VT. Uh, this one actually is attempt to actually make the guest OS configuration at this point more follow a more reliable pattern. So names of guest OSs, ISO files, if I remember correctly, passwords for guest OSs, those things are being checked now. So new additions of new guests and more predictability can be expected. Yes, so names of ISOs and passwords. Yes. So yeah, this is Avocado VT site. Besides that, we usually are not able to keep track of everything in Trello cards, but things that are actually come up during the development can just be found on Git. So if we just take a look at everything that showed up from 53 up to this point, we may see a bunch of other fixes. So we introduce port tracker, linter fixes, inspector fixes, increases in timeout. There is a ton of things. The memory library, which we did not mention, which was also a nice addition to the utility. Uh, Libraries of Avocado. Um, a bunch of fixes. We can tell here there was a lot of changes with regards to the variant ID format and the test ID, some documentations and packaging fixes. Anyway, we can go through the you can go through the test log through the git log if you really want to keep track with all the changes, but there should be a lot more than we are able to quickly to really track with the Trello board. Having said that, this is how the release 54 is going to look like. So these are the new additions. We have gone through the testing and the issues have been addressed. So expect, excuse me, a new release later today. In the work in progress, things that we have started to work on or we have actively worked on, but we have not finished for this release. Um, Includes those 3 cards we have just moved to work in progress because we intend to start working on them immediately. The first one is the addition of new architectures for the GOS on Avocado VT. So we have realized users are testing more and more often Avocado VT on other architectures such as Power and ARM. So this is on the pipeline. We noticed some tests on Travis for Avocado VT are broken, and even though they are reporting success, they are not passing. So we have to take a look at that. Next one is we log the Avocado version when it's actually the Git version when we run Avocado out of a Git tree. The thing is, there may be a shortcoming or a bug there when you have both Avocado installed from another method, such as packages, but you happen to be running Avocado out of the directory with a source tree. We may incorrectly identify that you're running Avocado from Git, where you might be running from a package and otherwise. So this is something we have to check upon. There are a few Avocado VT tasks that Lucage has been working on. This has to do with parameters for spikes that are not respected when when a VM is asked to recreate or to create itself. There's some code there to detect changes in parameters and restart the VM, usually QEMU, with the right options. So he's working on that. Um, Another Avocado VT task is an attempt to add all the requirements uh, to Avocado VT, so it can be more or less installed as a Python package, as it usually is. So a Python setup.py install, or even, I'm not sure if this has been tested, but even something like pip install should in theory be closer here now that the requirements are better described. So this is pending testing, but it's already being worked on. On my side, there are a number of tasks related. So I can count this, and these other two, which are somehow related. They are related initially with how Avocado gets data files from. Actually, an Avocado test gets data files from. So we have an API which is DataGear. The thing is, when we started Avocado, we introduced this concept. It's actually quite common on the Avocado source code. On the examples, for instance, you see .data files. So if we look at examples, tests, we see a bunch of tests followed by .data. So for double free, we have double free.py.data, and this is considered the data tier. The issue is that when we support multiple tests inside a single Python file, we break this relation, so we actually need to support data tiers per test and also per variant. So there's already a pull request out there on V3 actually. Um, and this actually has cascading consequences also to output checking. So there's another card on output checking. Come on, GitHub, you're taking too much time. Anyway, so use the new data gears to check for output check record feature. So this should enable tests, multiple tests to use the output check record feature. Uh, at the same time, when dealing with output check record and dealing with differences that were expected and recorded, there is another card in which we are planning to record the differences instead of the whole content. This seems more easy. This seems easier to look at. And finally, uh, cards that are also somewhat related is writing to standard out and standard errors should not affect the runner. Um, we notice that some test execution is dependent upon the test process. Some of the test runner features are depending on output generated by the test process, and it should not. It should be completely isolated. And this has a relation to how we run tests and what tests generate and how we check for output of tests. So a number of kind of more low-level plumbing changes and bug fixes that we have to go through. And these other two cards, which are one Avocado VT about merging Cartesian config repos, and also a second version of the multi-machine support for tests, are still here but have not seen any work on this sprint. On the backlog, we have a definitive solution to what we partially solved by logging the file name location, which is define and improve the source. Oh, I thought it was defining and improve the notion of test repos. My bad. So define and improved source of test params. There's a discussion already going on in the mailing list. We're penning a V2, but basically this is about how users can create a simple file with parameters that can be given to tests. So right now, users are either using the varianter as a way to pass parameters, or using abusing, let's say, the MOOCs inject to pass parameters. And we feel that a cleaner, more direct, something like a file should be used. Basically, this card is about how to create a documentation on how to create a base test class. To be honest, I think our users have gotten like pretty good at this based on some repos and codes that we have found so far. Okay, so for the next release, we have a bunch of cards, not a bunch, but a few bugs. During the planning meeting, I said that I have like the hopes that I have for this release are basically finishing the tasks for the next release are basically finishing the tasks, the big tasks that I think are already in here with regards to the separation of responsibility between test process and test runner, the various changes regarding to output checking and data files, and also a task that has already been done a few times, like incrementally moving us closer to Python 3, and we have also received um, some contributions, this time from Paulo, and also we have active issues on Python 3 support, so I see that as something quite important. Um, I'm saying all this because I don't think we will bring to the next sprint backlog too many cards. At least that's my perspective so far because of the impact of the tasks that we have already pending. Uh, Having said that, at least the bugs, and we've discussed this before, that we actually consider this a bug. Are you in agreement, Amador?
Yes, it is.
So these are like two bugs that, of course, have to be fixed. Um, this is a nice to have, also nice to have. This would also mean a big improvement to the architecture in Avocado, which is bring the test loader into the new architecture. We have seen some shortcomings with how we list tests that were not found, test types, and new plugins for test loaders do not really fit uh, perfectly well with the rest of the architecture. So this is about making test loaders like first class, or at least like look the same as other types of plugins. Um, yeah, I think this is a rather conservative sprint backlog, but I think it's accurate given the important tasks we already have on the work in progress and already on GitHub. And let's not forget the work we have done on the QMU project as well, helping with tests there.
Yeah, it
So
seems realistic.
yeah, I think it's pretty much realistic. So we have to create a new, I always forget how to do this. So to create a new
Uh, I can do it
repo.
for you.
Oh my God. No, it's not a board.
Yeah,
It's
you go to the last one and add a new list,
ah, there it is.
and
So
it will be done 55.
which doesn't have a name yet.
Mm-hmm. And you move it.
Here, I archive this one,
That one.
archive this list, and this continues to be done 54, and this becomes work in progress 55.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, I got it.
And sprint backlog 55.
Okay, so
Yeah, it will be named by Lukash this one.
mhm.
And let's wait for him.
Okay, so I guess we have covered it all. Any other words?
Yes, I just remembered that a few weeks ago I worked uh, in kind of an integration with between Avocado and Appium
Mm-hmm.
testing framework. Actually, I went to Appium to make sure that Appium would be working with Avocado, and if not, to make the change that would be required to have that working. And taking advantage that we are recording this session, I'd like to quickly go through the structure that
Bonus
I
section.
created.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I said bonus section. It's a bonus.
Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't planned, and yeah,
Yeah,
sure, go ahead.
sorry for not saying before, but the points that I just remembered, and I have the environment ready here, so we can just
That's awesome. It's like a
go.
bonus track. It's like
Yeah.
you paid for 15 tracks on a CD and you get an extra
And
one.
we still have a few minutes to finish. So let me go through what I have here, and then we can record it and make it available in our YouTube channel. Well, the main goal with this work was to make sure that we work with Appium. If you don't know Appium, Appium is this mobile test automation framework. The main intention, the main goal of Appium is to be able to run functional tests in mobile apps. It uses Appium
Salvador,
server.
just quickly, if you can switch your screen, you're sharing the YouTube screen, which is I'm not
Uh,
sure. Do you have another screen to share or?
mm, I was sharing my entire desktop.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Let me, but it was not working. Sorry. Let me try again. Entire screen. Is it working now?
It is.
Okay, so this is the Appium website. Appium is this automation framework used to test mobile apps, Android, iOS, Windows apps. Of course, I'm not going through the process of having Appium installed and working in your machine, but basically you have to install it, configure install the dependencies, configure your server, and when you have the Appium server running, then it comes to the Avocado way to execute the tests that are written using the Appium API. I have a test here, a demonstration test. It is basically importing the Appium WebDriver and also importing the Avocado test API. I'm creating my test class, and I'm using the Appium capabilities and APIs from within my test, my Avocado test. This is the setup phase. I'm getting the Android version from our parameter system. So it means that you can create a YAML file with different versions of Android that will be used for this test. For this test only, I'm testing an Android app, which is called API Demos Debug APQ. The Android version is coming from our parameters file, and here I have the test methods, which is basically getting some kind of element from the app and running some action, tapping that element, and then getting the next one and asserting the element exists. So it's really like dummy test. It's not the real world scenario, but just to make sure that Appium is running as an Avocado test. So from my parameters, what I have is params, YAML. Basically, I'm just defining 3 different versions of Android. And the problem comes when you have to create the emulators with these versions of Android, because you have the tests, you have the Android app to be tested, but you need the device to test that app on. And to have that covered, I created some pre-post scripts. I have a pre-script called Android env. This one basically creates the emulators that I need. I have the command to run the emulator. I have the emulator named after the Android version to make it easier, Android 5, Android 6, and Android 7. After running the emulators, I have this routine just to make sure I will not run the test before the emulators are ready. So I'm basically using some ADB commands to make sure that the emulators are up and running. I mean, the Android is already initiated. And after the emulators are ready, I will just exit the loop and let the Avocado to execute the test that we have in that test file. So to make sure that everything is working together and to put everything to work together, I'm using this jobscripts.conf additional configuration file for Avocado. This guy is basically saying to Avocado that it has to use those pre-post scripts that I created. The post script, it's just about shutting down the emulators that I created in the pre-scripts. So putting everything together, I have the job scripts being configured here. I have the test file here. I have the parameters here. And I hope it works. OK, I'm starting up the 3 versions of Android, Android 5, 6, and 7. They are being started. So the job script is waiting them to be started before running the tests. So first one is up. Second one is up, third one is up, and now we can run the tests inside those. It will take a couple of minutes, but I ask you to have a little bit of patience. We are delivering the app inside one of the versions there. Now it's running. Okay, next one. The second task is the same task, which is
But
being executed on the
oh, you
next
shouldn't.
version. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will keep it. So you can see
Uh-huh.
the movement. And then next version of Android, then the next task, first version of Android, second task, second version of Android, and so on.
That is really cool.
I should have created faster tests, sorry.
That's fine. I had the impression that like I'm completely ignorant about the level of compatibility that Android apps have across versions, but I wouldn't expect like a single package to work like
Mhm.
on three major versions like you exemplified.
Yeah, and you see that the emulators, they were all shut down by the
Jobs.
post
Mhm.
script, which is basically running the proper commands to kill the emulators that I created in the beginning of the process. So it was a zero change project in the Avocado side. I could create the whole structure and run the test just using the features that we already have in Avocado. And yeah, we work with Appium.
Nice. That's nice. And this gets all the benefits of avocado like transparently. They're just a test in theory.
Mhm.
No difference. Cool.
Yeah, the I think the most tricky part is to have the API environment up and running, but that's not Avocado's concern.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe we can strip that part of the video and make it a self-contained video as well.
Mhm.
So nice. I think that's all we've covered. All completely with bonus sections. Unless you have anything else up on your sleeve.
No, that's all.
Okay. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys on the next meeting. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.